So I've come to believe that Recluse might be the best Balancer Relic user in Nightreign.
What?
Maybe with the exception of Executor. Now, a lot of you are probably automatically going to turn your nose up at that comment, but let me give you some information on why she might be the best person to use the Balancer Relics before you dislike the video or whatever, and then after I've given you the information, then you are free to do as you please. So, let's get into it. Pro number 1, Recluse, the caster, known for her very massive FP bar, is already a massive pro to use the almighty L2 button. Not only does she have a massive FP bar, she already basically has an unlimited / renewable source of FP. If you're decent at managing your FP, you will never run out. Pro number 2, she has the option to run numerous different playstyles, especially if you use this build that we're going to get into a little bit later on. Pro number 3, she's one of the only characters in the game, her Executor and the Raider, that can efficiently use the Knight of Dregs, which of course you know by now is a 45% damage increase. Pro number 4, her ultimate is probably one of, if not the best support ultimate in the game. It gives you infinite FP, it will refill your HP bar as long as you're damaging the enemy, and it debuffs the enemy, lowering their defenses by 15% for 13 seconds. Well, it's actually 12.5 according to the data files, don't ask me why. So 13 seconds is a very long damaging window. Now, not only does it debuff the enemy for 15 seconds, if you pair it with her personal relic, the ult that inflicts blood loss on herself, to get a power up, you get an extra 16% damage increase for yourself for a whopping 30 seconds. Now, from just doing the numbers alone, they actually work out together to about 37% increase. So, if we put all that together, Knight of Dregs gives you a 45% damage increase, her ult and her personal relic gives you 37% damage increase, and then if we throw a Balancer relic on, that's an extra 21% damage increase. All those combined, you get a huge 103% damage increase. Now, remember, it's multiplicative. So let's say that you have your Halo slot doing 1000 raw damage. If you add those buffs on, your damage increase is actually closer to 140%. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That's the biggest damage increase one can achieve in the game. The biggest damage increase to go with the biggest pair of... Now, for all that information out of the way, sorry to all you anti-nerds that don't like the numbers, let's go for the build and show you how I run it. So obviously, first up we have the Knight of Dregs. I've gone over this previously. Essentially, it has 10 stacks. Each stack ranges from 3.5 to 4.5% damage increase. The final stack gives you a 45% damage increase. Now, to receive this damage increase, you need to have a status ailment bar showing on your screen. And when this relic is equipped, the game has an internal timer that checks every 20 seconds to see if there is still a status bar on the screen. If there is, you get another damage increase, which maxes out at 10 stacks. Easy, right? Well, yes, it is easy, but you need a way to get yourself below the max HP threshold, which leads me on to the next relic. You need a relic that has Briars of Punishment on. So, for those of you who don't know what Briars of Punishment is, essentially you use the Thorn sorcery, and this will inflict a wound on the caster. This wound obviously lowers your HP, and this will push you under the max HP threshold, which I believe is 85%. Essentially, once you are below 85%, you can use the Poison or Rot build-up below max HP. This is obviously a detriment passive on your deep relics, which we'll get into. Essentially, you need to be able to take your HP under 85%. Now, I have a very good relic, which is the Briars of Punishment, but it's also her ultimate art inflicts blood loss on herself. But basically, you just need the Briars of Punishment. And then finally, we have the blue Balancer relic. Red Balancer relic is perfectly fine, and in fact, it might actually be a better option because of the occasionally nullified attacks when your defenses are lowered. This gives you like a 1 in 5 chance to not take any damage when your defenses are lowered, and this can be for basically any reason. So just having a status bar on your screen, which will count as one of these reasons, it will give you a 1 in 5 chance to not take any damage, which means you got a 1 in 5 chance to not get one shot. I use the blue relic just for the FP regen, but either of them are perfectly fine. Essentially, the Balancer relic just gives you an extra 21% damage increase when using an Ash of War. Not all Ash of Wars, like things like the Rain of Arrows on bows, they only get a 16% damage increase, but essentially, most Affinity Ash of Wars are going to get buffed. As for the Deep Relics, first relic is just an affinity +2 with Dormant Reapers. You can swap Dormant Reapers out for whatever you want. I just like to use Dormant Reapers when I'm using this kind of build. It works really well on the Recluse, so yeah. Swap it out for whatever you want. Affinity +2 is really important. It gives you a 10% damage increase on all affinity attacks. Second relic is just another affinity +2, but this one's super important because this one has the poison build below max HP. The whole setup is useless if you don't have poison or rot below max HP because this is what sets your Knight of Dregs off. And finally, we have the Vigor Endurance Dex relic with a physical attack +4. Now, honestly, the affinity would be better on this relic. Physical attack works perfectly fine because a lot of Ashes of War get buffed by the overall AR of the Ashes. But affinity would be better because realistically, you want to aim for affinity Ashes of War, like your Halo Scythe, like your Rivers of Blood. And if you don't find what you're looking for, you can always use the affinity buffs you've got on your relics to just stick to your sorceries. Now, of course, with the Vigor, Endurance, and Dex relic, you do lose out on some intelligence. But honestly, it really isn't a problem, especially when you're using the Knight of Dregs, because the 45% damage you get from the Knight of Dregs will make up easily for the intelligence that you lose out on. So yeah, if you don't find the Ash of War you're looking for, Halo Slop, or whatever it is you're looking for, you can stick to your sorceries and just play her as a normal caster with the extra 45% damage increase you get from the Knight of Dregs. Now, that pretty much covers the build. There isn't really much else to go over. Any build that can give you a potentially 140% damage increase and a 15% debuff for your teammates on any enemy, it's definitely worth looking at and it's definitely worth giving a try. Let me know in the comments if you've had any unique builds like this or if you've used this build previously. I can't imagine I'm the first person to even show this build, but it does have the potential to be one of the craziest builds out there. And dare I say, I think I would prefer a Balancer slot Recluse on my team over a Duchess slot Recluse. Recluse's ultimate is just way more useful for overall team play. Of course, the Duchess survivability is, it's much higher, and the ultimate gives you a free damaging window, so pros and cons. As always, gamers, if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate you dropping a sub, helping the brother out, drop a comment and like, all that cheesy stuff. That does help the channel out massively. Stay safe, catch you on the next one. Big love, peace.